Well now, this is interesting. So, Zone of the Enders, the second runner Mars, hereafter referred to as just the second runner, is a bit of a unique piece. A remaster of a remastered game, it's pushing the PS2 original even further from what it once was. But not only that, it stands as a symbol of a completely new direction for Konami. For a few years now, ever since the release of Metal Gear Solid 5, there's been this underlying tone to any discussion of Konami, where they were seemingly done making games outside of pachinko parlors. I've seen a lot of theories on why, or to what end, but the end result was that a lot of great franchises kind of disappeared. I'd say Zone of the Enders was no exception, but really that would imply it had been getting support before that in the first place. A franchise of only 3 games, all originally released within a 2-year period, the series simply never found the solid footing to get any kind of extensive support. It received some amount of attention with the release of the HD collection on the PS3, collecting the 2 mainline games and sprucing them up a bit, but that was all the way back in 2012. Then out of the blue comes this, a new, even more remastered take on the second runner. It's not even the only Konami re-release in this season, with a Castlevania double pack still to come as of this recording. Is all this a sign of the company turning over a new leaf, or just a desperation play? That I can't say. But what I can say is plenty about this game. The second runner, as a sequel, built a lot on its predecessor, but perhaps the simplest place it builds from is in sheer content. The first Zone of the Enders game is, in all honesty, practically a tech demo, with a very short story across only a few areas that mostly look the same. The second runner, meanwhile, does a lot to improve on that, with more actual story, more things to do, and more places to do them in. It's still a lean game without a lot of sprawl, but it feels like it's actually complete. Rather than focusing on the protagonist of the first game, here we have an entirely new man stuck in the pilot seat, one Dingo Egret. But the focus is still on Jehuti, the overwhelmingly powerful orbital frame, or giant skatey murder robot, that is the central MacGuffin of the entire franchise. The core gameplay is where things get, let's call it interesting. The original Zone of the Enders games are an incredibly fascinating exploration of controls and gameplay loops, but they're still from the early days of the PlayStation 2. Some of the ramifications of this are small, like the remaster has to work around the fact that we don't have pressure-sensitive face buttons anymore. And some are larger, like how the entire 3D movement system operates on this idea of a lock-on mechanism where you orbit around your target. So almost all of the unique things, the good and the bad, of the second runner can trace back to this vintage. Coming back to it is like opening a time capsule. Cameras, control schemes, voice acting, none of these work like this anymore. When was the last time you played a game where the triangle and X buttons were for height control and your attacks were on square and circle? But I'll be honest, the reason we don't see a lot of this anymore is because not all of it works. The second runner's mechanics basically hold together, but as combat gets more intricate with larger groups of foes, this whole orbit around a single target system starts getting really awkward really fast. Instead of doing the intricate dogfighting the game wanted me to do in these situations, more often than not, I found myself just trying to get enough room to lob charged attacks from range into the entire mob. And the voice acting. Oh boy, the voice acting. Not just the actual voice work, but also the translation. This is from an entirely different era of translation, one that wobbled between extremes. And as could be expected from the game being produced with Kojima's help, the translations here lean hard into the attempted literalism. But if you follow the evolution of language translations in media, especially the recent shifts in how we deal with that ever so common Japanese to English path, you'll know that doesn't really work. You end up with sentences that don't flow right, nuance gets lost, and sometimes the meaning changes entirely. And the whole situation gets combined with awkward voice acting that's just like... I can't say that with authority that it fails to capture the original intent, but it probably fails to capture the original intent.
Damn! I'll shoot it down.
I do want to be clear, I don't blame anyone who worked on this remaster, even on the original release for this kind of thing. A lot of these problems are just it's a sign of how far we've come in these last 15 odd years. Mother of God, it's been that long. That was once a top-notch performance, now feels stilted and dated. That's kind of the recurring pattern I found when I was playing the second runner. I'd continuously run into situations where the game felt good, I was enjoying myself, and then I was snapped back into remembering that this was a 2003 era video game structure with a fresh coat of paint on it. That's not to say that's entirely a bad thing. There's something a bit refreshing, in fact, in playing something that feels so different from that well-refined, now well-worn loop of your classic AAA action-adventure open-world shooty-man game. but I've got to acknowledge that it's got some stumbling blocks. And some of those blocks really stick out a lot. So where's that leave the verdict? Well, a lot of the game works, and a lot of the problems weren't problems when the game was originally made. So I'm leaning to recommend it. But it's a bit of a soft one because some of those things did age better than others. Watch the footage, look it up, take it how you will.